You are listening to The Testimonial, a podcast of critical essays bearing witness to the forces that shape our world. We conduct historical autopsies, expose hidden systems, and decode the profound truths within culture, politics, and the seemingly whimsical. Each episode is a deep dive, a forensic investigation. This is The Evidence. You are about to hear the testimony on the museum as trophy room, how Western museums became monuments to colonial plunder.
So picture this. You're walking through the quiet, almost sacred halls of one of the world's great museums. The light is perfect. You come across this incredible sculpture, a Benin bronze from Nigeria. You lean in, you want to know its story, and you read the little plaque on the wall. It has just one word: acquired.
Acquired. It sounds so clean, doesn't it? So neutral. Like a simple purchase, a straightforward transaction. But what if that one simple word is actually hiding a story that's anything but simple? What if it's hiding something much more violent?
Okay, let's actually peel back that label. Because in 1897, the year listed on that plaque, a British military force laid siege to the Kingdom of Benin. They didn't just walk in, they shelled the city, burned the royal palace to the ground, and looted it. Thousands of sacred objects, an entire kingdom's living history, were just ripped out and taken as prizes of war. So no, this was an acquisition. Let's call it what it was: a trophy. And that really brings us to the core, unsettling question of this whole testimony. When we're standing there, in front of this masterpiece in its perfectly lit, climate-controlled case, are we actually looking at preserved history? Or are we really just standing in the world's most elegant evidence locker?
To even begin to answer that, we've got to go back. We need to look at how the modern museum was even created in the first place. We need to examine the colonial blueprint. You know, the Universal Museum as we know it today was really born from two completely conflicting ideas. On one side, you have this beautiful Enlightenment ideal. Let's gather all human knowledge together for everyone to learn from. But on the other side, you have a raw imperial ego, a drive to possess, to classify, and ultimately to control the world's cultures. And the hard truth is, the noble idea was basically funded by the brutal one.
And this timeline really shows how fast conquest just became a form of curation. The British Museum's founding lines up perfectly with its expanding empire. But Napoleon, man, he took it to a whole new level. His military campaigns were also art confiscation campaigns. I mean, on an industrial scale. He was looting Italy to fill the Louvre, and the message was crystal clear. Military power and cultural power are the same thing. Now, obviously, to justify theft on this kind of scale, you need a moral alibi. You need a good story. And they found the perfect one: the civilizing mission. This was the idea, this paternalistic belief that European powers had a duty to civilize what they called backward peoples. And if a culture was seen as savage, well then, the logic went, they were obviously incapable of taking care of their own great art. And with that one idea, they pulled off this incredible sleight of hand. It reframed the entire act. Theft became a rescue mission. The looter suddenly became the savior. And the culture that actually created the masterpiece, they were just recast as an irresponsible child. The argument was basically, we're not thieves, we're saviors.
So, with that blueprint firmly in place, let's move on and examine some of the key pieces of evidence. Let's walk through this gallery of plunder.
And we have to start back in Benin. It is so vital to understand that these weren't just art objects. This was the kingdom's archive, its library, its sacred texts all in one. The British raid wasn't just looting, it was a targeted act of cultural erasure. And then, the final insult. The stolen treasures were auctioned off in London to pay for the very military expedition that stole them, scattering a nation's soul across the globe. Okay, now let's turn to the Parthenon marbles. This case is a little different. It's not a violent military raid, but a more calculated, almost legalistic kind of theft, carried out by a diplomat.
The scale of this is just shocking. Between 1801 and 1812, a British ambassador named Lord Elgin removed roughly half, 50%, of all the surviving sculptures from the Parthenon. And he didn't just, pick them up. His men used saws and pulleys to literally hack them off the ancient temple, damaging the monument forever.
And this wasn't some universally celebrated act, even at the time. Elgin's story was that he was rescuing the marbles. But his contemporary, the poet Lord Byron, saw right through it, calling him a plunderer and a dull spoiler. Even back then, people knew this was vandalism, not preservation.
And finally, we have the Rosetta Stone. It's literally the key that unlocked the entire language of the pharaohs, a true symbol of human understanding. but its own history is one of pure conflict. It was found by Napoleon's troops and then surrendered to the British as a spoil of war when the French were defeated. The legal document that puts it in London, it's a military treaty. It is a trophy of imperial rivalry, plain and simple.
This brings us to a really crucial comparison, one that reveals a pretty profound hypocrisy. Let's compare colonial plunder to Nazi plunder. The methods? Identical. Systematic, state-sponsored looting. The justification? Also identical. A belief in ideological supremacy. But the global response? Polar opposites. We have had a massive, systematic effort to return Nazi-looted art. And yet for colonial plunder, there is widespread, entrenched resistance. It is a glaring double standard.
So, given all this evidence, what's the verdict? To get there, we first have to really examine and dismantle the primary defense that museums use today to hold on to these objects.
This is the universal museum argument. And it sounds good, right? But let's break it down. Universal accessibility is a myth when you consider visa barriers and the sheer cost of travel. Neutral preservation is a fallacy. Displaying an object in London or Paris inherently imposes a Western narrative on it. But most importantly, the whole argument is an act of historical erasure. It asks us to forget the burning city of Benin and just admire the pretty bronze in the glass box.
The verdict here isn't to just empty the museums. It's for them to evolve. So the path forward involves a few key things. For the most egregious cases, like the Benin bronzes, unconditional return is the only just answer. For others, it's about building true partnerships, not paternalistic ones. And for everything, it's about radical transparency. Tell the violent, true story of how these objects got there right on the museum wall.
A museum should be a place for a truthful and unflinching conversation with our collective past. It cannot be that place while it remains a sanctuary for its spoils.
You have been listening to the testimonial on The Museum as Trophy Room, how Western museums became monuments to colonial plunder. Follow us on social media at The Testimonial for updates and to join the conversation. If you believe a topic deserves a testimony, let us know.